Shalom. Happy Hanukkah, Chazi. Um, so I thought I would um, I would do a little explaining of Hanukkah for a Christian audience. Excuse me. Partially because I was exposed to this, dare I say, hilarious article from a website for um, Christians in Israel. Um, so, if you ever had any doubts as to how um, um, I have said that I have never uh, been able to find a Jewish convert to Christianity who was not um, intensely ignorant of Judaism when he converted. Um, I have not been able to find such a person. Uh, well, okay, I guess there was the chief rabbi of Rome um, converted after World War II because he was a Mussolini stooge, and the people who bring him up as a good thing. But there's this article by Aaron Hecht, which is a very Jewish name, and he apparently lives in Jerusalem. So you would think he wouldn't write something this silly, but here we go. December 20th, 2021. 'Tis the season to argue. The argument over the rather presumptuous question of is it okay for believers to celebrate Christmas is one which inevitably gets mixed up with another question about whether Hanukkah is an appropriate alternative. I've given my own thoughts in blogs of Christmas past, and I don't want to rehash any of that material. But I do want to make a comment about how this issue of Christmas versus Hanukkah is, in fact, kind of a microcosm of a much bigger argument about whether traditions based on pagan traditions and or fairy tales made up by Jews are somehow more acceptable to God than traditions based on pagan traditions and or fairy tales made up by Gentiles. Hence, the hypothetical question in the title of this blog. In the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verses 22 through 23, it says that at the time the Feast of Dedication took place in Jerusalem, it was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple area in the portico of Solomon. Based on this brief passage, many assert that if we want to follow Jesus, we must celebrate Hanukkah as he did and eschew Christmas as he did and does. So I have to tell you one of my favorite jokes. I told Sam this joke, and he said it would be a lot funnier if he knew who Theodore Herzl was, because he didn't know who Theodore Herzl was. So what's the difference between Jesus and Theodore Herzl? Jesus celebrated Hanukkah and Herzl celebrated Christmas. Yeah. Um, but how did he celebrate Hanukkah? The Gospel of John doesn't tell us. It just says he was in the walking in the temple area. He was walking in the temple area at the season of the year when it was happening. But one thing we can be sure of, he did not light candles in a menorah that was placed in the window of his family home in Nazareth the way Jewish people do today. For the same reason Jesus and the disciples walked from the Galilee to Jerusalem instead of taking Egged bus number 959. Hanukkah candles. Now, if you want to be if you want to be oh wow, we have Paul. Jews don't argue, do they? Never. Jacob is reading us a bedtime story, a very strange one. This is true. Well, in other news, I tried fruitcake for the first time yesterday. Fruitcake isn't that bad. Yeah, like I don't know why you're being anti-fruitcake, Paul. I actually liked it. This was fruitcake made by Trappist monks. Did it have rum? Fruitcake I found incredibly dense. But let's go back to Hanukkah. And let me take. Oh, it had bourbon in it. Okay, back to Hanukkah. But one thing we can be sure of, he did not light candles on the. Now, if you want to be charitable, then he's specifically talking about candles, and like he's being incredibly, intensely, stupidly exact. First of all, actual very religious Jews will, like, for example, I'm guessing Chezi and possibly Yosef, will actually still light oil, not with actual olive oil and not use candles. So if you want to go back to using olive oil, you can. And if you want to only light one, while that's no longer our custom, it wouldn't be the huge deal that this guy's making about the particulars and making it sound like we don't know that quite likely in his windowsill, Jesus lit a light on Hanukkah. Okay, we can go through we will go through the sources after this, but Paul says, "What if we make candles out of olive oil?" I don't know if you can make candles out of olive oil. Most candles are made out of beeswax. But why are we reading this? We're reading this to show the ignorance of some Christians about their own Christianity. I'm not just dunking on Christians. I actually am going to give an actual introduction of interesting stories, but I thought I would go ahead and let you see what some people don't understand about Hanukkah for Christians. Okay. The tradition of lighting 8 candles on Hanukkah emerged centuries after Jesus was in Jerusalem, and was tied to a story about how the Maccabees wanted to purify the temple after they kicked out the Seleucid Greeks, but they could only find 1 jar of consecrated oil. The supply of oil was enough for 1 day, but it miraculously burnt for 8 days. This story is nothing but a fairy tale. Nothing. I'm sorry, Paul. What can I tell you? If people want to jump on and talk about something, I mean, ah, I, I only offer what I offer, Paul. I only offer what I offer. This is what I have for the world. Kind of like the fairy tale of a man in a red suit who lives. Okay, we can stop reading this, I guess. But okay, if you want to read this article, you can. But let's talk about actual Hanukah. So, what do we know about Jesus and Hanukah? We know that Hanukkah definitely existed as an actual holiday from various sources. And you can read the Wikipedia article that has lots of information there. The earliest source for Hanukkah lighting appears to be Josephus. So, again, around the time of Jesus, before the time of Paul of Tarsus. Can we sing the dreidel song? The dreidel song, so, like, sure you can. I mean, okay. But Josephus says that it was called a Festival of Lights, and we do have early Greek attestations to what is obviously all over the Mishnah and Talmud. So if you're going to just assume that things which are in the Mishnah were made up after the destruction of the temple, you're just being absolutely ahistorical, right? So the Mishnah was finally redacted around 200, and it's so were Jews lighting lights to celebrate Hanukkah during the life of Jesus? Yes, they were. Were they lighting them at in public and around, probably in their windowsills? Yes, they probably were. The author is claiming that the writing of John and the festival of dedication is a fairy tale. I mean, Paul is basically right. I mean, he says he thinks I'm dunking on Christians, and I kind of am, because my new favorite verse from the New Testament to quote has been John 4:22. I think it is. Is that what it is? It's one of my it's my where's let me find. I think it's John 4:22. Yeah, it is John 4:22. So this is Jesus speaking. English ESV. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. I've started really loving this verse and quoting it at Christians because it's true and it's Jesus. And, like, what are you going to do? Anyway, back to explaining things about what we know about Hanukkah during the Second Temple period. So one of the most interesting things I would say for a Christian regarding Hanukkah is actually, have you ever considered why everybody was named Mary? Like, so many women named Mary all over the Christian Bible? To some extent, you could talk about, and lots of critical analysts have textual analysts have talked about the possibility that, like, it's actually the same Mary, but, like, they're being, like, they're trying to erase the actual family. Like, that's Robert Eisenman's theory. But Mary was a very common name during the life of Jesus. And there's a reason why. Herod married the last of the Hasmoneans, Mariamne, and had 2 kids with her. In exchange for marrying her, he made her brother, a young man, the high priest. And then he killed her brother, killed her, and killed his 2 sons, which may in fact be the real source of the slaughter of the innocents in the Gospels. Right, as Paul says, better to be Herod's pig than Herod's son, and apparently that rhymes in Greek. We were saying, so the Hasmoneans were very, very popular. They had been defeated by the Romans, and the Romans installed Herod, and in order to kind of give him legitimacy, they married Herod to Mariamne, who was the last of the Hasmoneans, basically. And she had 2 sons. And so the idea was that Herod could be, Herod's sons from Mariamne could kind of be passed off as pseudo-Hasmoneans, right? I mean, whatever you think of that, what is very, very obvious in the names in the Christian Bible is how pro-Maccabee / Hasmoneans they were. In addition to the women being named Mary, Matityahu was a Hasmonean name, as was Yehuda. And so it seems quite clear that it seems quite clear that I'm taking a break, CW. I'm taking a break. I have papers to write, and yeah. And my bathroom is still not done. Oh my God. I blew up at the contractors today. So this is my break. I have a kitty in my lap, and I'm dunking on Christians. Anyway, so actually, the book of Maccabees, or First and Second Maccabees, is in the Catholic Bible. I think some Eastern Orthodox have like all 3 Maccabees. We don't have any of the books of the Maccabees in our Bible. And there are there are explanations for that. One explanation for why, so there isn't a tractate on Hanukah in the Talmud that we know of, although there is some speculation that it was one of the Masechtot Ketanot, one of the minor tractates. There is speculation that the Mishnah did not include a tractate on Hanukah because it would have been too controversial with the Romans for Rabbi Judah the Prince, who was the redactor of the Mishnah. So there were many different known rabbinic teachings, which were considered the oral law, and Rabbi Judah the Prince, around 200, gathered them into a single mnemonic poem called the Mishnah, which is incredibly long. Studying one order, it has 6 orders. Studying one order of the Mishnah took me about 2 years of regular work, right? So, but it doesn't have a tractate Hanukah. And it only mentions Hanukah. It mentions several times Hanukah. I could pull up. So here are the actual. So in Baba Kama 6:6, there's a debate about who's liable if for a fire caused by a candle that's left outside. And Rabbi Judah says if it was a Hanukkah candle, he is exempt, which should show you that Hanukkah candles were lit in public during certainly the time of the Mishnah, but it's earlier than that. I mean, if you're just assuming that anything that comes from, and here in Megillah 3:4 and 3:6, it's talking about the haftarahs, which is another thing I talk about. No, it's talking about what happens if a camel knocks over a candle and there's a fire. That's what it's talking about. Yeah. Poor Jewish Bible doesn't get the Book of Maccabees. Well, part of the reason for that is because the Maccabees did not believe in separation of church and state, and the rabbis were very opposed to that. So you might find that interesting in terms of secularism. They were a family of priests, Kohanim, and they took over the kingship to themselves, and the rabbis were very critical of that. That is one of the reasons we didn't have a thing. Did they elevate Hanukkah so Jewish kids wouldn't feel left out of Christmas? There is an argument that could be made that the Rebbe did that, but Hanukkah only became a big deal in the United States over the past 40 to 50 years because of campaigns by the Rebbe. I talked about this with Ben a little bit. We could get into it, but what happened was the Rebbe got, based on Jewish things, like he didn't just get it out of nowhere, but he was very active in the campaigns that Chabad does, and if you pay attention, you'll see like Chabad still has Hanukkah campaigns. It's because of the Rebbe. And it was very controversial when he started. And so there was a Supreme Court case about, did you already go over the situation with Joe? I have no idea who Joe is. Hello, Matthew. So there was a Supreme Court case about a nativity display, and Chabad's, actually the Beverly Hills Hanukkah display, I think, was the one that went all the way to the Supreme Court, in the one in Beverly Hills, but not sure. But it did go all the way to the Supreme Court. And basically the entirety of the Jewish community, from Orthodox through liberal, I have no idea what makes more people or fewer people listen to the streams. I really don't. I mean, do people really change because of the things that I've been saying and stop listening? Or like, if you're listening to me, you're listening to, I don't know. Anyway, Paul, stop distracting me. What was I saying? Let's go back. The topic is Hanukkah for Christians, and so what I was back to was, it's always PBK's fault. I forgot what I was saying. I was talking about the Book of Hasmoneans, which is in Christian Bibles, not in Jewish Bibles. Some Christian Bibles. What Joe joke? Did you already go over the situation with Joe? Did I say something? I don't get it. I don't get it. Sorry. Okay. Okay. I mean, yep, my reputation is. Chezi says, Yalla, Torah. Torah? What does this have to do with Torah? We're talking about Christianity. Should we go back to my favorite new verse of the Christian Bible, John 4:22? You know not, you worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Now, can we sing the dreidel song? Sure. Ma'asur Yeshuati Hanukah Hamizbeh. I actually don't know the words to Ma'asur. I'm not a huge fan of dreidels. Well, there's Shir Chanukat Habayit. Which psalm is that? Song of the dedication. Psalm 30. We could sing. Do you really want me to sing Psalm 30? I can pull up Psalm 30. That is not. I was talking about Megillah. Let me finish about Megillah before I pull up Psalm 30. So it talks about the haftarahs on those weeks, and so that an irregular haftarah is read on the Sabbath. And if you don't know what a haftarah is, then you also don't know what Jesus was doing when he was reading from the book of Isaiah. Psalm 30. Psalms 30. Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit LeDavid. Arumimcha Adonai ki dilitani belo simachta oivai Adonai Elohai shivati elecha v'tirpaeni Adonai helita min sheol nafshi chiyitani miordei bor. Zamaru Adonai chasidav v'hodu lezecher kodsho. Ki rega ba'apo chayim bertzono ba'erev yalin v'chi ולבוקר רינה, ואני אמרתי בשלבי, בל אמות לעולם, אדוני ברצונך העמדת להרי עוז, הסתרת פניך הייתי נבהל, אליך אדוני אקרא, ואל אדוני אתחנן. מה בצע בדמי ברדתי אל שחת, היותך עפר, היגיד עמיתך, שמע אדוני וחונני, אדוני היה עוזר לי. הפכתי מספדי למחול, לי פתחת שקי ותעזרני שמחה, למען יזמרך כבוד, ולא ידום אדוני אלוהי לעולם עודך. Was that what you meant by the dreidel song? Because that's the actual dreidel song. That is the actual dreidel song. I guess I could also find Ma'oz Sur. Ma'oz Sur. Where's Ma'oz Sur? Share this tab instead. My voice is horrible. Where is Ma'oz Sur? I guess I could play this one. Shabbat tikon betefilati v'sham toda nezabeach le'et tachin matbeach mitzar hamenabeach az egmor beshir mizmor Chanukat hamizbeach Az Edmor Beshir Mizmor Chanukat hamizbeach Ra'otzav anafshi Beyagon kochi kala Chayai meru bekoshi Beshibud machbut egla Uvyado hagadola Hotzi et hasegula Chel paro v'chol zaro Yardu ke'even b'mtzula. Yeah, so that's Ma'oz Sur. I hope you enjoyed Paul making me sing. Where were we? Jacob, are you going to SawCon? Is that the Pajot thing? Sorry, nope. And yes, nice emoji, Nathaniel. Was the miracle that fact that the rabbis felt confident enough to claim this was all a miracle and created a festival? Chazi always has to take in the Zionist digs, doesn't he? Always the Zionist digs. Now they're playing with... Remember, like and subscribe and camels. He learned something. I wonder what that is. We're up to 12. Are we? Chazan. Ha. Very funny. Very funny, Andrew. Very funny. Oh, you guys weren't looking at the words of... What were you guys? Yeah, you were looking. Okay. I was like wondering what you guys were looking at. Anyway, so Psalm 30. I wanted to visit Israel so I could enjoy Zionist digs. Well, apparently God had other plans. And since God had other plans, I don't feel so bad about letting. We won't talk about that. But yes. So since Paul loves Chezi with his Zionist digs, so the Zionists, because they feel confident enough to proclaim miracles and create new festivals, are creating new holidays, and they claim that their whole justification is because it happened thousands of years ago. Yeah, Chezi's really big on Zionist digs. He is. Okay. Did I have other material? I mean, we could look at the actual Talmudic. So the Talmud tells the fairy tale. Actually, it says it's from Megillat Ta'anit. So Megillat Ta'anit, I wonder why Christians don't have Megillat Ta'anit in their Apocrypha. So Megillat Ta'anit, the scroll of fasts, was an early Jewish writing. I don't know. Do we have Megillat Ta'anit? Ancient Jewish text. So the scroll of fasting is an ancient Jewish text in the form of a chronicle, which enumerates 35 eventful days on which the Jewish nation either performed glorious deeds or witnessed joyful events. So apparently it's from Megillat Ta'anit. Do we have, when's the oldest? I mean, the Talmud discusses it. What's the oldest versions we have? Additions and commentaries. Megillat Ta'anit is extant in many editions and has had numerous commentaries. The best edition of the Aramaic and Hebrew text is that of Vered Noam, which has supplanted A. Neubauer's, who jumped on. It's Jonathan. Hello, Jonathan. How are you?
I just wanted to rock my appropriate sweatshirt on the stream.
Oh yeah, I saw that during the thing. Oi to the
Oi to the world.
oi.
Little Christian joke in there too.
I get it.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. You are obligatorily required to have bad whatchamacallits. Bad sweaters on. I guess this is my bad sweater. I mean, it's not such a bad sweater, is it? Mm-hmm. How many spellings are there for Hanukah? So there's one spelling for Hanukah. It's Chet Nun. No, actually, okay. So there's two spellings for Hanukah. It's Chet Nun Kaf He or Chet Nun Vav Kaf He. And if you're writing it without the vocalizations, you generally want to include the Vav. But yes, there are two spellings of Hanukah. He's wearing an ugly Hanukah sweater.
Not so bad.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's countercultural.
Yeah. Especially in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, you won't see me in public in this shirt.
Really?
Ironically, given, yeah, I'm not going to walk the streets. We'll see. We'll see.
What does your wife think of it?
She's like, "What are you wearing?" She thinks I got it from like book club. I got it from a special interest group at work.
Special interest group? Oh, you belong to the Jews.
Quietly, surreptitiously.
I see.
Oh my God, Paul.
Grand Rapids. I mean, I guess we could talk about Grand Rapids. That there was all the discussion about Grand Rapids on Paul's channel.
Yeah, I was halfway through when I saw this was kicking, so I came to say hello.
So I made my comment like 2 minutes into watching it, and at the very end, it was like, "Yep, I was right from the very beginning. I knew exactly what was going to happen." Like, I didn't even need to know. It was obvious what the nightmare is. The nightmare is they've retreated into their various camps, kind of like the Hasmoneans, and they're coming out fighting. We can do a tour of my projects, please God, one day. Chazi says, "Hi, Jonathan. I hope all is well."
Hello.
Chazi, do people actually take holidays on Hanukkah? It's a minor holiday. I mean, in Israel, when I was there 23 years ago, I can't believe it's been 23 years since I've been to Israel. It was still a very like low key small holiday. Like, yeah, Orthodox Jews light candles and have to say some extra parts of prayers, but that's about it. Like, it's really minor.
So, what was the bigger miracle? The candles or beating the Greeks?
So, in Al Hanisim, which is the prayer we talk about, I guess we could read Al Hanisim. I could pull up Al Hanisim. How about I pull up Al Hanisim? So, share this tab instead. And I will show people where Al Hanisim is. If you go into the liturgy, so there are several places in which we say Al Hanisim.
Spoiler alert.
In the Amidah, so that is the great standing prayer, temple, but we say it in Modim, in Thanksgiving. And in Modim, during the season of Hanukkah, add, "And we praise you for the miracles and for the redemption and for the mighty deeds and for the victories and for the battles that you performed for our fathers in those days at this time. In the days of Matisyahu," that is Matthew, "the son of Yochanan," and that's why there are so many Johns in the Christian Bible, "the high priest, the Hasmoneans and his sons, when the wicked kingdom of Greece rose up against your people Israel to make them forget your Torah and to stray from the laws of your will, you, with great mercy, stood by them in the time of their distress. You fought their fight, judged their cause, and avenged them with vengeance. You delivered the strong into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the wicked into the hands of the righteous, and the arrogant into the hands of those engaged with your Torah. For yourself you made a great and holy name in your world. You performed a great deliverance for your people Israel on this day. After these things, your children entered into the Holy of Holies of your house, cleansed your temple, purified the place of your holiness, kindled lights in your holy courts, and established these 8 days of Hanukah to express thanksgiving and praise to your great name. So, this is the essential retelling of the story in the liturgy.
Awesome.
Usually just a lot of eating at candles, that's about it. Yeah. Not eating candles, eating while you light candles. And actually, a lot of people, this halacha, most people didn't, very few people know of the halacha, and very few people observe it, which is that while the Hanukkah lights are burning, or at least for the half an hour after they are lit, women should not do malacha as like on the Sabbath. So there are women who know this and will let their husbands know that this is half an hour of Sabbath for them. But other than that, the candles miracle is a medieval invention. No, it's not. It's, as I pointed out in earlier, it is in the Talmud, and the Talmud actually says it is in the book of in Megillat Ta'anit, and so, well, I mean, I don't know if that particular story is in Megillat Ta'anit. Is it? Is that what it says? Where were we? I lost where we were. I totally lost where we were. Let me find it again. Candles.
As he said, it's in Shabbat, second chapter.
Yeah, I have, like, that's what I have pulled up, but the question is where in Shabbat in the second chapter? The story of the cruise of oil comes from yeah, 21b, but where in 21b? Okay, let me go back to 21b. Where was I? 21b. It's 22b. 21. Oh, here it is. Here, yeah. It's 21b10. Okay. So this is what the Talmud says. The Talmud says the sages taught in Megillat Ta'anit on the 25th day of Kislev. The days of Hanukkah are 8. One may not eulogize on them, and one may not fast on them. What is the reason? Okay, so it's not Megillat Ta'anit which gives this story. it is from the Talmud. There is no way this is. First of all, this is not even in the Aramaic. It's in Hebrew. So the Hebrew parts of the Talmud are earlier than the Aramaic parts of the Talmud, and so this is at the very least a Braita. This story is as old as much of the Christian Bible. So, yeah, sorry, you're absolutely wrong. There was no halachic need for the miracle. Candles are an Egyptian invention about 3,000 years ago, BC, I guess so. What did you do tonight, honey? I watched someone on YouTube scroll through religious texts. Can you speak to the Kabbalistic significance of the holiday? Nope. Sorry, I cannot, because I don't know the Kabbalah. Almost midnight in Minneapolis must be cold there too. 39 degrees in Sacramento. It's actually pretty cold here. No better way to spend your evening than scrolling through the Word of God and commentary on it. I agree. 30 degrees in Minneapolis. 32 feels like 27. Kings and generals lied to you? Who are kings and is that some whatchamacallit? Podcast I don't know about? Anyway, so I would date this story at least at 300. So, yeah, that's like the latest. It's a YouTube channel, Kings and Generals. Yes, I can believe they lied to you, especially if it's a Christian YouTube channel talking about Hanukah, because that's what you get. What was that verse I was quoting? John 4:22. It would be better if it was John 4:20. That would be better. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know. For salvation is from the Jews. Sorry, guys. I have to tell you. Salvation is from the Jews. Do you agree, Jonathan?
I agree.
They're a secular history channel, so Christian. Actually, like I was watching Doug Wilson's thing about Christian nationalism, and he has this thing like your only choices are tribalism, nationalism, or globalism, and obviously he doesn't like globalism and he doesn't like tribalism, so he's left with nationalism. And then he says your only choices are either Christianity or not Christianity. And so obviously he's for Christian nationalism. And it's like, no, you could take that version of Christianity we call secularity and stick to that. Whatever happened to that? I've driven pretty close to Moscow, Idaho. Moscow. It's not Moscow. It's Moscow. Whatever happened to that article you wrote about secularity as the daughter of Christianity? Isn't Zionism Jewish nationalism? Yes, it is. That is why it is a heresy. I oppose all religious nationalism. Might have something to do with the fact I was born in Iran right around the time of the Islamic Revolution. I think it is a mistake. Religious nationalism is a mistake.
What about Jewish tribalism?
Yeah, that's a mistake too.
So what's it going to be?
Judaism is a religion, and your religion is the basis by which you judge everything else. So your politics, while your politics should thoroughly be subjugated to and under the command of your religion should in no way be compromised by, democracy is Protestant, but I mean, Judaism does not have a prescribed government. That there is no such thing as a halachic government that can be had without an institution of the prophets. Yes, the Messiah will be the king, but who anoints the Messiah, Paul? You know that whole transfiguration thing where Elijah comes, right? The Messiah has to be anointed by a prophet. We have no prophets. Unless Elijah decides to come and give us a king.
He shows up first, right?
Yes. Like the Bible says. Malachi 3 in Christian Bibles, I believe it is.
How would you recognize that?
If you have any misgivings, it couldn't possibly be Elijah. Like, when Elijah comes, people will know. This is so Acts 5, Gamliel. That was one of the surprising things that I read in the Christian Bible. I was like, there's the Jewish position right there, and the Christians don't get it. He's like, if it's the Messiah, he'll be successful, and if it's not the Messiah, he won't be successful. And why would you find yourself on the wrong side? Like, why would you bother to find yourself on the wrong side? He's absolutely right. It's so funny. The book of Daniel, right? Which all of the people who are so into Bible prophecies about the Messiah are like, if you just read it, it says, wait. Happy is the one who waits the longest. Wait. I don't want to wait. I prefer, it's funny. I sent you the 13 principles of Jewish faith, right? So out of the 13, the only one that says even though, right? All of them start, I believe with perfect faith. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema, right? I believe with perfect faith, right? And there's one of them that says, I believe with perfect faith, Ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema, beviat hamashiach, in the coming of the Messiah. Va'af al pi sheyitmamea, and even though it may tarry or take its time, right? In kol zeh, even with all this, achakelo b'chol yom sheyavo, I will await each day for him to come, right? It's like, just wait, just wait, just wait. You have zero obligation to identify who the Messiah is. Now, if it is the Hanukah, I'm perfectly fine with that. There's a reason I have his picture up on the wall. I think he's a great candidate if all the Christians were like, this is the reincarnation of Jesus, this is the second coming of Jesus, I'm fine with that. Like, I don't mind if Christians believe that he's the second coming of Jesus. Like, but if he's not the Messiah, he's not the Messiah. I have zero role in declaring who the Messiah is. Like, the coming of the Messiah is important because it includes with it all the other things that come with it, which is no more death, no more ignorance, no more law breaking, no more deliberate sins, right? Like,
Well,
that sounds like a beautiful world to live in.
Death isn't in that list, though.
Death,
Not right away.
Is it?
Mashiach dies.
Well, that is the question, right? So, again, have to go back to Maimonides, chapter 12 of Laws of Kings and Wars, and frankly, it's a very important thing he says. Let me pull it up. He says, so Maimonides, Halacha, Mishneh Torah, Laws of Kings and Wars, Martial Rules, Kings and Wars, chapter 12, right? And he says, and in the days of the King Messiah, it will be known to all what the metaphor is about and what is hinted at by them. The sages said, okay. And there are those among the sages who say that before the Messiah will come, Elijah will come. And all of these things and things like them, people won't really know how it will be until it happens. Because these things are not explicit in the prophet's words. And the sages also don't have a received tradition about these things. Just and interpretation of the verses. And interpretation of the verses. Therefore, they argue about these things, and in any case, there is no order to these things happening, and the details of them is not necessary to the religion. And a person should never study the tales or spend a long time on the Midrash told about these issues and things like them, and they shouldn't be made to be essential, since they bring about neither awe nor love of God, right? So, like, the Bible is not explicit. And anybody who claims they know exactly what the details are, right? Obviously, there are all these arguments. So God obviously didn't think it was important to make these things clear. So stop. Like, this is not what is important. If you read even the Gospel of Matthew, right? It's like, this is not what we get judged on. God's not going to be like, oh, you thought X was the Messiah and Y was the Messiah. Like, I'll go back to my normal beating point. Like, John Calvin could have believed Jesus was the Messiah or not believe Jesus was the Messiah. That is not more important than the dozens of people he murdered. Right? Like, he murdered dozens of people. He's a bad person. And what he got right in his Institutes of Religion, right, is completely secondary to the fact that he murdered dozens of people. And if you don't understand that, then like it's not my Bible you are trying to understand. In my Bible, the fact that he murdered dozens of people is far, far more important than any ideas that he had about how the eschaton will be and soteriology and any other ology you have. He was a murderer. That's it. And this is why I like it's kind of funny to me, like listening to Christians like post-mill, a-mill, like dispensationalist, all these terms, criminology. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, criminology is far more important than soteriology, right? Don't be an effing criminal. Let's start there, right? Once you're not murdering people and stealing from people and like being a horrible person, right? Then we can talk about like the finer points of spirituality. But when you're an actual murderer, just get out of here. I see you have a cough too.
Yeah.
It seems everybody has a cough.
Stuff's going around.
And it's apparently not COVID because I had to take a COVID test.
There is some of that too, but it's like a little bit of everything. It's a smorgasbord of viral illnesses.
Do you know how that the Messiah is not here? Because you're coughing.
We could argue about that, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess. But like sickness, like serious illness.
Wars seem pretty clear cut to me. So let me know when there's world peace, and then we'll start the conversation
about the other details. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean I was actually delighted to find out that Christians don't mean it when they say Jesus is the Messiah. Like when I found out that preterism is a Christian heresy, right? Like the idea that like the prophecies of the Bible have all been fulfilled. Like that's a Christian heresy. Like the vast majority of Christians, because it's like, are you nuts? Like this is your idea of like the world when the Messiah comes? Like you really think this is like and to the Christian idea, like that's an end of sin, right? Doesn't Paul specifically say that? Like Jesus put an end to sin. Well, apparently not.
Yeah, death too.
He conquered death, right? I don't see it. I just don't see it.
Well, death seems to be out on bond still.
Apparently.
All right, it's late here, but happy Hanukah.
Happy Hanukah. Hanukkah Sameach.
Peace.
I should probably get to bed myself.
Well, if you end the stream, I'll stick around to the bitter end.
I think I am going to end the stream. Yeah.